Have you ever imagined a mother who makes her own daughter eat in the kitchen on Christmas Eve? What do her grandchildren do? Eat cold leftovers while the rest of the family celebrates in the living room. Jessica lived it. She arrived at Margaret's house believing she would finally be loved. But that night, the children cried, the humiliation was total, and words that should never have been said were spoken. What happened that night has never been forgotten. This is Jessica's story. Christmas should be about family, love, and togetherness. At least that's what everyone says. But the truth is, for many people, Christmas is the most painful time of the year. It's when family wounds are exposed. It's when we realize that not everyone who shares our blood truly loves us. Jessica knew this. She carried this pain for 35 years. Every time she saw Christmas commercials showing happy families together, her heart sank. Because her family was never like that. Margaret, her mother, always had a favorite. And that favorite was never Jessica. But Jessica never gave up. Year after year, she tried. She called, texted, brought gifts, all to get a little attention, a little love. She believed that one day her mother would finally see her worth, that one day she would be recognized. You know that feeling of always trying to prove you're good enough, of doing everything right and still never being seen. Jessica knew that feeling all too well. And if you've ever felt it too, you'll understand every bit of this story. That Christmas, Jessica was full of hope. After a difficult year, things were finally looking up. Daniel, her husband, had gotten a promotion. They had money to buy decent gifts. The children were excited. She'd made Margaret's favorite pie. Everything was perfect. But what Jessica didn't know was that that night would change her life forever. Not in the way she expected. Not with hugs and reconciliation. But with a pain so deep that she would never be the same person again. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, which city and country are you watching us from? Jessica sat on her porch, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. December had arrived, and with it, that familiar feeling in her chest. Anxiety mixed with hope. Christmas was coming. And like every year, she thought of Margaret's house. She looked down the street and saw neighbors starting to decorate. Colorful lights were being strung, trees were being put up. Everyone was excited for the holidays. But for Jessica, Christmas always brought back complicated memories. She closed her eyes and let the memories come. She was 7 years old. It was Christmas morning, and she ran downstairs, excited to see her presents. Under the tree were stacks of wrapped boxes, huge stacks. Jessica began searching for the ones with her name on them. She found three small boxes. Catherine, who was only 4 years old, had at least 15 presents, large, colorful, with enormous bows. Jessica looked at the difference and felt something strange in her chest. Something a 7-year-old can't name, but feels deeply. "Mommy, why does Catherine have so many presents and I only have 3?" Jessica asked, trying not to cry. Margaret didn't even look up from her coffee cup. "Because Catherine is still little. You're a big girl now. You don't need so many toys." Jessica was 7 years old. She wasn't big. She was just a kid, too. But that was the first Christmas she understood. Catherine was special. She wasn't. Jessica opened her eyes, the cold cup still in her hand. How many years had passed? 28? And that feeling remained the same. Another memory surfaced. She was 12. Christmas Eve. Margaret was in the living room full of visitors, showing Catherine's report card. "Look at that! My Catherine got excellent grades. She's so smart." The visitors praised her, saying Catherine would be someone important in the future. Jessica sat in the corner of the room. Invisible. Her grades were even better than Catherine's. But Margaret hadn't shown her report card to anyone. She hadn't even mentioned it. That night, Jessica gathered her courage. "Mom, why didn't you show me my grades? I got good grades, too." Margaret was putting away dishes in the kitchen. "Oh, Jessica, don't be needy. You don't need attention all the time." But she needed it. Every child needs it. Jessica got up from her porch chair and walked into the house. Daniel was in the kitchen making lunch. He glanced at her and noticed that distant look in her eyes. Thinking about her again? Jessica nodded. It's hard not to. Christmas is coming. Daniel dried his hands and hugged his wife. He knew every one of those painful stories. Honey, you don't have to go there every year. You know that, don't you? Jessica rested her head on his chest. I know, but she's my mother, Dan. And I can't give up believing that one day it will be different. Another memory came to mind. Jessica was 16, Christmas again. Catherine had just won a car, a new red car with a giant bow. She was 13, not even old enough to drive, but Margaret wanted to give her that special gift. Jessica didn't get anything like that when she turned 16. She got a blouse, a simple blouse Margaret had bought on sale. You need to learn the value of things, Jessica, Margaret said. But Catherine never needed to learn the value of anything. She got everything. Jessica pulled away from Daniel's embrace and walked to the window. You know what's worse? It's not even the presents. It was never about that. It's the way she looks at Catherine and the way she looks at me. With Catherine, her eyes sparkle. With me, it's like she's looking back at a mistake she made. Daniel didn't know what to say. He'd tried so many times to protect Jessica from this pain, but she always came back, always waited. It was another Christmas. Jessica, now grown, married with newborn Noah. She took the baby to meet her grandmother. She was so excited. She thought a grandchild would change everything. Margaret held Noah for 5 minutes and then handed him back. It's okay, Jessica. I need to finish making dinner. But when Catherine had her first child, Margaret took a week off work just to help out. She posted dozens of photos on social media. She called Catherine's grandson my treasure, my life, my joy. Noah was never given those names. Neither was Sophie when she was born. Jessica felt the tears start. Daniel came over and gently wiped her face. Honey, you don't deserve to go through this every year. I know, she whispered. But this year is different, Dan. We're okay now. You got the promotion. We have money to buy real presents. I can make her the pie she loves. I can make the kids look pretty. Maybe when she sees all this, she'll finally see me. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. Jessica, you don't have to prove anything to her. You're amazing. You're a wonderful mother, a perfect wife. You've built a beautiful family. I know that here. Jessica touched her head. But here, she touched her heart. I still need my mother to see. She wiped away her tears and took a deep breath. This year will be different. I'll do everything right. I'll bring the perfect pie, the perfect presents. The kids will be perfect, and my mom will finally understand that I'm worth something. Daniel didn't answer. He just hugged his wife and hoped with all his might that she was right. But deep down, he knew. He knew Margaret. He knew Catherine. And he knew Jessica would probably leave with her heart broken again. But he didn't say anything, because Jessica needed that hope. She needed to believe that this time would be different, even though it probably wasn't. Jessica pulled away from the hug and smiled, wiping away the last of her tears. I'll start planning. I need to pick out the kids, outfits, think about gifts, decide when to bake the pie. She was excited now, with that sparkle in her eyes Daniel knew well, the sparkle of hope. It's going to be okay this time, Dan. I can feel it. Daniel forced a smile. I hope so, love. Jessica left the kitchen, already making mental lists of everything she needed to prepare. Daniel stood there, watching his wife leave, and felt his heart sink. He knew the ending to this story. He'd seen it happen so many times, but all he could do was be there to pick up the pieces when it all fell apart, because with Margaret and Catherine, it always fell apart. Have you ever prepared so hard for something, put your heart and hope into it, only to be accepted by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? Tell us in the comments how you handled it. And if you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any more moving stories like this. 3 weeks before Christmas, Jessica picked up the phone. She stared at the screen for a moment, took a deep breath, and dialed Margaret's number. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th, Margaret answered, "Hello?" The voice was cold, distant. Jessica recognized that tone immediately. It was the tone Margaret used when she didn't want to talk to her. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" Jessica tried to sound cheerful, light. "I'm fine." Pause. Awkward silence on the other end. Jessica waited, but Margaret didn't say anything else. "Mom, I wanted to check in about Christmas. We'll be there, okay?" Another silence. Longer this time. Jessica felt her stomach start to tighten. "We'll see." "Jessica, what do you mean? We'll see." "It's Christmas, Mom. I always go there for Christmas." Margaret sighed, a tired, irritated sigh, as if Jessica were a burden. "It's just that this year is complicated. Catherine is organizing everything, and there are a lot of people confirmed." Jessica felt that familiar ache in her chest. "But Mom, it's me, Daniel, and the kids. Only 4 of us." "I know how many there are, Jessica. I'm just saying it's complicated." Margaret's voice was growing more impatient. "How complicated, Mom?" Jessica tried to remain calm, but she could feel her voice starting to shake. "Catherine invited important people, her co-workers, friends. It's going to be crowded." Jessica was silent, processing this. Had Catherine invited co-workers to the family Christmas? "Mom, but it's Christmas. It's supposed to be family." "And it'll be family, Jessica. Only there will be other people too." Margaret was getting irritated now. Jessica could feel it. "So we can go, right? Me, Daniel, Noah, and Sophie." Margaret took a while to respond. When she did speak, her voice was even colder. "I'll see what I can do." And she hung up, without saying goodbye, without an "I love you," without anything. Jessica stared at the phone in her hand. That tightness in her chest was worse now, that feeling of asking permission to be in her own family. Daniel walked into the room and saw her expression. "What's wrong?" Jessica looked at him, her eyes already starting to get wet. "I talked to my mom. She said she'll see if we can go." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean, maybe?" "It's your mom, Jessica. It's Christmas." "I know," Jessica whispered. "She said Catherine invited a lot of people and it's hard to fit everyone in." Daniel shook his head in disbelief. He wanted to say so many things. He wanted to shake Jessica and make her see how wrong this was. But he knew it would be no use, so he just held his wife as she tried not to cry. Over the next few days, Jessica texted Margaret several times. "Mom, confirming we'll be there on the 25th. Margaret simply replied, "Okay." Jessica sent another, "Mom, do you need me to bring anything? I can make you my apple pie, which you love." Margaret took hours to respond. When she did, it was simply no need. Jessica tried calling again the next day. The phone rang and went to voicemail. She left an excited message, talking about how excited the kids were, about how Noah had drawn a beautiful picture for Grandma. Margaret didn't return the call. 2 days later, Jessica texted again. "Mom, what time should we be home on the 25th? It took Margaret a whole day to respond. After 6. Every curt reply was a stab. Every unanswered call was a door slammed in her face. But Jessica kept trying. She kept texting. She kept believing Margaret was just busy, just stressed with the preparations. A week before Christmas, Jessica opened Instagram. The first thing that appeared was a photo of Catherine. She was at Margaret's house, wearing an expensive dress, posing next to a huge, luxurious Christmas tree. The caption read, "Preparing the perfect Christmas dinner at Mom's house. Can't wait to welcome our special guests. It's going to be a night to remember." The photo had hundreds of likes. Catherine's friends commented things like, "So beautiful. Your mom is lucky to have you. The perfect family. I can't wait to be there." Jessica felt the lump in her throat grow. She scrolled through her feed. More photos. Catherine choosing the table decorations. Catherine tasting the dishes that would be served. Catherine holding crystal glasses. In every photo, Margaret was beside her, smiling. That smile Jessica rarely saw. Jessica commented on the photo with heart emojis. It's beautiful, Catherine. I can't wait for Christmas too. She hit send and waited. Catherine saw the message. Margaret saw it too. Neither of them responded. In the following days, more photos. The table was being set. Porcelain plates, crystal glasses, linen napkins. Everything perfect. Everything luxurious. The captions always talked about the perfect Christmas and special moments with Mom. Jessica looked at each photo and felt that pain growing. Catherine and Margaret together, laughing, making memories. Things Jessica never had with her own mother. 3 days before Christmas, the phone rang. It was Margaret. Jessica answered quickly, her heart pounding. "Hi, Mom." "Jessica, look, I was just wondering." Margaret's tone made Jessica's stomach drop. Maybe it's best if you don't come this year." Jessica felt the world stop. "What do you mean, Mom?" "It's really cramped. Catherine invited a lot of people and there won't be room for everyone." "But Mom, we already confirmed it. The kids have been excited for weeks. Noah and Sophie can't stop talking about seeing Grandma." Jessica felt the tears starting. "I know, Jessica. But what, Mom? Don't you have room for your own grandchildren?" Jessica's voice was breaking now. Margaret was silent. When she spoke, her voice was irritated. "No need to be dramatic, Jessica. It's just Christmas. You can come next year." "Mom, please." Jessica hated begging, but she couldn't stop. "We really want to be there. I promise we won't take up too much space. I promise." Margaret sighed, a long, tired sigh. "Okay, Jessica. Come on." "But I'm not promising anything, okay? If it gets too tight, you'll have to make do." "Okay, Mom. Thank you. We'll be right there." Jessica was almost crying with relief mixed with pain. Margaret hung up without saying goodbye. Again, Jessica sat on the couch, trembling. Daniel had heard everything from the bedroom. He came and sat beside her. "Honey, do you realize what just happened? Your mother doesn't want us there." "She said we can go," Jessica murmured, her voice weak. "She said that after you begged." "Jessica." Daniel cupped her face, making her look at him. "This isn't right." "I know it's not right," Jessica burst out, the tears finally falling. "I know, okay? I know my mom doesn't want me there. I know she prefers Catherine. I know all that, but she's my mom, Dan. And I can't give up." Daniel hugged his wife as she cried on his shoulder. He didn't know what else to say. He'd said everything in the previous years. Nothing changed. But Jessica would keep going. You would keep waiting. He would keep ignoring all the signs screaming in her face. Because hope is sometimes stronger than reason. Jessica stood in the department store, perusing the children's clothing. In her hand, she held the money she'd saved for the past 3 months. Each bill represented a sacrifice, a lunch missed, a coffee missed, a trip to the salon canceled, all for this moment. She picked out a navy blue shirt for Noah. She ran her hand over the fabric. It was nice, well made. Noah would look handsome. She also picked out a pair of khaki pants that matched perfectly. For Sophie, she found a red dress with a delicate bow at the waist, simple yet elegant. Jessica imagined the children dressed like this entering Margaret's house. She imagined her mother finally realizing how well cared for her grandchildren were, how well dresses, beautiful. She imagined Margaret looking at her with pride for the first time. At the checkout, the total was more than she had planned. Jessica hesitated for a second, staring at the numbers on the screen, but then she thought of Margaret's smile and swiped her card. The purchase was approved. At home, she carefully put away her clothes. Daniel walked into the room and saw the bags. "Did you buy any new clothes?" Jessica nodded excitedly. "For Christmas at my mom's, I want Noah and Sophie to look perfect." Daniel looked at his wife and felt that familiar tightness in his chest. He knew that gleam in her eyes. It was hope mixed with despair. "Honey, you don't have to do all this." "I know I don't have to," Jessica said, still smiling. "But I want to. This year will be different, Dan." In the following days, Jessica began planning gifts. She spent hours researching what to buy. For Margaret, She found a cashmere shawl. It was expensive, very expensive, but she had seen her mother looking at one just like it in a store months ago. Jessica took the shawl in her hands and imagined Margaret opening the gift. She imagined her mother surprised, happy, telling Jessica she shouldn't have spent so much. She imagined Margaret hugging her, telling her she had the best daughter in the world. She bought the shawl. For Catherine, she chose an imported perfume. For her nephews, toys she knew they would love. Each gift was chosen with such care and affection. Daniel saw the gift boxes piling up in the living room. He saw how much money Jessica was spending. "Honey, are you sure about all this?" Jessica was wrapping the gifts, focused on tying the perfect bows. "I am. My mom needs to see that I care, that I'm putting in the effort." "She should know that by now," Daniel murmured. But Jessica didn't hear, or pretended not to hear. 3 days before Christmas, Jessica started making the pie, that special apple and cinnamon pie. The recipe had been passed down from Jessica's grandmother, and Margaret always said it was her favorite. But she also always said no one could make it right. Jessica was determined to prove she could. She set out all the ingredients on the counter: fresh apples, ground cinnamon, brown sugar, butter, all of the best quality. She began to carefully peel the apples, cutting each slice to the exact size. Daniel walked into the kitchen and saw Jessica completely focused. "Need help?" "No, thanks. I have to do it myself. It has to be perfect." Jessica didn't even look at him, focused on the apples. She spent hours making that pie. Mixing the dough, adding the filling, braiding the topping. When she finally put it in the oven, she stood there, staring through the glass as if she could make the pie perfect with willpower alone. The scent of cinnamon and apples filled the house. Noah and Sophie ran downstairs. "Mommy, it smells delicious." "It's the pie for Grandma," Jessica said, smiling. "She'll love it." When the pie was ready, Jessica carefully removed it from the oven. It was golden brown, perfect, exactly as it should be. She set it on the counter to cool and watched it proudly. Daniel hugged her from behind. "You look beautiful, love." "You do, don't you?" Jessica was beaming. "My mom will finally see that I can do it, that I'm good at something." "You're good at a lot of things," Daniel said softly. "You just need a mother who can see that." Jessica turned and kissed her husband. "This year she'll see it. I can feel it." The next day, Jessica called the children into the living room. "Come here. We need to talk about Grandma's house." Noah and Sophie sat on the couch, attentive. "At Grandma's house, you have to be very well behaved, okay? No running around the house, no yelling." "Why, Mommy?" Sophie asked. "Because Grandma likes everything tidy and quiet, and we want her to be happy with us, don't we?" Noah looked at his mother with those big eyes. "Isn't Grandma happy with us?" Jessica felt her heart sink. "She is, baby. Mommy just wants you to show how well-behaved you are." She spent the afternoon practicing with them, how to greet people, how to thank them for gifts, how to sit quietly at the table. Noah tried to pay attention, but he was an 8-year-old. Sophie was distracted every 2 minutes. "Sophie, pay attention." Jessica was getting anxious. "It's important." "Okay, Mommy," Sophie said, startled by her mother's tone. Daniel watched it all from afar. He saw Jessica putting all that pressure on the children. He saw the little ones trying to please the mother they loved so much. And he felt anger. Anger at Margaret for making Jessica feel this way. Anger at Catherine for fueling that dynamic. Anger at the entire family that hurt his wife repeatedly. That night, when the kids went to bed, Daniel held Jessica's hand. "Honey, do you realize you're putting so much pressure on everyone? On the boys? On yourself?" Jessica looked at him, her eyes tired. "I just want everything to be perfect, Dan." "But why? Why does it have to be perfect?" "Because if it's perfect, my mother will see me. She'll love me. She'll choose me." Her voice broke on the last word. Daniel hugged his wife. "Honey, you shouldn't have to be perfect to be loved, especially by your own mother." Jessica rested her head on his shoulder. "I know, but it's all I have to try." On the morning of the 24th, Jessica checked everything one last time. The clothes were ironed and ready. The presents were beautifully wrapped. The pie was carefully stored. Everything was perfect. She sat on the bed and looked at it all. All that effort, all that money, all that love put into every detail. It has to work, she whispered to herself. It has to. Daniel walked into the room and saw his wife sitting there, looking at everything with a mixture of hope and fear. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to take it all and throw it away, take Jessica and the children and get far away from Margaret. But he couldn't, because Jessica had to try, had to believe, even if I'd probably end up heartbroken again. This year will be different, Jessica said, looking at Daniel. He forced a smile. I hope so, love. But hope, they would soon discover, is sometimes not enough. Jessica woke before sunrise. She glanced at the clock on her bedside table. 5:30 in the morning. December 25th, Christmas. She lay there for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, feeling butterflies in her stomach. Anxiety mixed with hope. Today was the day. Today everything would be different. It had to be. She got up carefully so as not to wake Daniel. She went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. She was 35 years old, but at that moment she felt like a 7-year-old again. That child who only wanted to be loved by her mother. Jessica showered, dried her hair, and put on light makeup. Every movement was careful, thought out. She had to look beautiful. She had to look perfect. She put on the dark green dress she had bought. She twirled in front of the mirror. She looked good. She looked presentable. She went downstairs and straight to the kitchen. The pie was there, tucked into the pretty box. Jessica opened it and looked. It was still perfect. Golden, fragrant. She carefully closed the box again. In the living room, the gifts were all arranged. Jessica checked every bow, every tag. Everything was fine. Everything was ready. She took a deep breath. It'll work out, she whispered to herself. It will. Daniel went downstairs and found Jessica in the living room, standing among the presents. Good morning, love. Awake yet? Jessica turned and smiled. I didn't sleep very well. Daniel hugged his wife. He could feel her shaking slightly. Nervous? A little, Jessica admitted. But it's a good kind of nervousness. Today's going to be special, Dan. Daniel said nothing. He just kissed her forehead and held her hand. He wanted to believe her as much as she did, but he couldn't. I'm going to wake the kids, Jessica said, already heading upstairs. She entered Noah and Sophie's room. They were both sound asleep. Jessica sat on the edge of Noah's bed and gently touched his shoulder. Wake up, my love. It's Christmas. Noah opened his eyes slowly and took a few seconds to process. When he did, a huge smile broke out on his face. Oh, it's Christmas! Today we're going to Grandma's house. Sophie woke to the noise and started jumping on the bed. Grandma! Grandma! Let's go see Grandma! Jessica smiled, seeing the children's excitement. They were so innocent, so full of love. Margaret had to see this. She had to love them. Come on, let's take a bath and get ready. Jessica led the children into the bathroom. She bathed Sophie first, washing her hair carefully. Then it was Noah's turn. When they returned to the room, the new clothes were on the bed. Look, the clothes Mommy bought for you. Sophie picked up the red dress and hugged it. It's so beautiful, Mommy. Jessica carefully dressed Sophie. She adjusted the bow at the waist, tied the girl's hair with a red ribbon, and put on the black ballet flats. Sophie twirled in front of the mirror. Do I look pretty, Mommy? You look beautiful, my love. Grandma will love it. She dressed Noah next. The navy blue shirt looked perfect on him. The khaki pants matched perfectly. Jessica brushed his hair to the side. There, my prince, you look beautiful. Noah looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. I'll show Grandma. Daniel walked into the room and saw the children ready. His heart sank. They looked so beautiful, so excited, and he knew Margaret probably wouldn't even notice. Wow, you two look amazing. Daddy, will Grandma like it? Sophie asked. She'll love it, Daniel lied. Jessica tidied up the finishing touches. She put on perfume and fixed her hair. She looked at herself in the mirror once more. She was ready. Everyone was ready. She went downstairs with the children. In the living room, she checked the presents once more. "Mommy, can I take the drawing I made to Grandma?" Noah asked. Jessica remembered the drawing. Noah had spent hours making it. It was a picture of the whole family together, with Margaret in the center. "Sure, baby, go get it." Noah ran to his room and returned with the rolled-up drawing. He'd even tied it with a red ribbon. Jessica felt her eyes well up. Her son had put so much love into it. Daniel began carrying the presents to the car. Jessica picked up the box with the pie so carefully, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. She placed it in the back seat, in the middle, so it wouldn't shake. The children climbed into the car excitedly. "How long to Grandma's, Mommy?" "About 20 minutes, Sophie." "That's a long time." "It goes by fast. You'll see." Jessica got into the car and buckled up. Daniel got into the driver's seat and looked at her. "Ready?" Jessica took a deep breath. More than ready. She looked back. Noah and Sophie were chatting excitedly about what they were going to do at Grandma's house. She looked at the presents in the trunk. She looked at the pie in the back seat. She looked at her green dress, at the children in their new clothes, at everything she had prepared with so much love. "This year will be different," she said, looking at Daniel. "My mom will finally see me. She'll see how hard I work, how much I care. She'll see that I've built a beautiful family. She'll appreciate me." Daniel held her hand. He didn't say anything. He just squeezed. He wanted so badly to believe. But he knew Margaret. He knew Catherine. He knew how this story ended. "Let's go," Jessica said, smiling. Daniel started the car. The children began to sing in the back seat. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Jessica looked out the window as they pulled out of the driveway. The sun was rising. It was a beautiful Christmas day. The streets were decorated. Families strolled along the sidewalks, heading to relatives, houses. Everything seemed perfect. Everything seemed right. Jessica felt that hope grow inside her. Today would be the day. Finally. The car turned the corner, heading toward Margaret's house. Jessica didn't know. She couldn't know that this would be the Christmas that would change her life forever, not in the way she expected, not with hugs and reconciliation, but with a pain so deep that nothing would ever be the same again. But in that moment, walking to her mother's house, with the children singing and the sun rising, Jessica still had hope. And hope was all she had. The car drove through decorated streets. Colorful lights twinkled on the houses. Inflatable snowmen swayed in the yards. Reindeer and sleighs adorned the rooftops. It was Christmas everywhere. In the back seat, Noah and Sophie sang excitedly. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. Sophie giggled between the words, making funny voices. Noah clapped his hands in time to the music. Jessica was in the passenger seat, looking out the window. But she wasn't really seeing. Her mind was elsewhere. She was at Margaret's house. She was imagining her arrival, imagining her mother's embrace, imagining everything going right. Daniel glanced at her. He saw the tension in her face, the way her hands were folded in her lap, her fingers tightly intertwined. He took one hand off the steering wheel and took hers. Jessica was slightly startled by the touch. She looked at Daniel. He smiled at her, trying to appear calm. She forced a smile back and squeezed his hand, but Daniel felt it, felt her trembling. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, so the children wouldn't hear. Jessica nodded. "I am, just anxious. Honey, if you want to go back, we will." "It's not too late." Jessica looked at him, surprised. "No, Dan, we're not going back. The kids are excited. I'm ready. Everything will be fine." Daniel didn't answer. He just looked back at the road. They passed a house where a family stood on the porch. Grandparents, parents, children. Everyone was laughing, hugging. Jessica looked and felt that familiar tightness. This was what she wanted. A family like that. Simple, happy, united. Ah, Mommy, look at that house. There's a giant Santa Claus. Sophie yelled from the back seat. Jessica turned and looked. It's really beautiful, baby. Is Grandma's house decorated? Noah asked. Yes, it is. Catherine decorated everything. It's going to be beautiful. The mention of Catherine made Jessica's stomach tighten. She imagined her sister at Margaret's house. She imagined Catherine being praised for everything, for the gifts she brought, for the food she helped prepare, for the way she dressed. Jessica looked down at her own green dress. Was it pretty enough? Would Margaret like it? Would she notice the effort she'd put in? How long is it, Daddy? Sophie asked. About 10 minutes, Daniel replied. Jessica felt her heart race. 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, and they would be there. She glanced at the presents in the trunk through the rearview mirror. She glanced at the box containing the pie in the back seat, carefully placed between the children. It was all there, all the effort, all the love, all the money saved. Dan, she whispered. He looked at her. What's wrong? Do you think my mom will like the pie? Daniel gripped the steering wheel. You'll love it, love. And the gifts? Do you think I chose right? You chose perfectly. And the children? Are they beautiful? They look beautiful, Jessica. But Jessica didn't seem convinced. She looked back again. Noah was staring out the window. Sophie was playing with her hair ribbon. They were so perfect, so beautiful. Margaret had to see this, had to love them. They passed a few more streets. With each block, Jessica felt her anxiety grow. That butterflies in her stomach were getting worse. That tightness in her chest was getting stronger. Baby, breathe, Daniel said softly. Jessica realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out slowly. Sorry, I'm just nervous. I know. But remember, no matter what happens today, you have us, you have me, you have Noah, you have Sophie. We love you, no matter what your mother says or does. Jessica felt her eyes well up. I know, Dan. I know you love me, but she's my mom, and I just want her to love me too. Is that too much to ask? Daniel didn't answer, because the answer was no. It wasn't too much to ask. Every child deserves to be loved by their mother, but not every child is that lucky. We're getting to Grandma's Street, Noah shouted, recognizing the route. Jessica sat up straighter in her seat. Her heart was racing now. Her palms were sweating. Daniel turned onto Margaret Street. The house was already visible in the distance, all lit up. Cars were already parked out front. The family was already arriving. Look at all those cars, Sophie said excitedly. Jessica counted. 6 cars. So many people. So much family. And she was part of it. She had to be. Daniel slowed down. The house was getting closer and closer. Jessica could see the decorations now. White lights everywhere. A huge wreath on the door. Everything perfect. Everything impeccable. It's beautiful. Sophie clapped her hands. Mommy, Grandma's house is the prettiest. Jessica tried to smile. It is, baby. Daniel parked the car in front. He turned off the engine. Everything was silent for a moment, only the sound of their breathing. We're here, Daniel said, looking at Jessica. She was pale, staring at the house as if she were seeing a monster. Jessica! Daniel touched her face. Baby, look at me. Jessica looked at him. Her eyes were filled with fear. Oh, what if it goes wrong, Dan? Then we'll leave. Simple as that. But the kids will be fine. They have us. Jessica took a deep breath, 3 times, trying to calm herself. Okay, let's go. She turned around. Ready, kids? Ready! They both shouted in unison. Daniel got out of the car first. He walked to Jessica's door and opened it. She got out slowly, adjusting her dress. Her legs were shaking. Daniel picked up the children. Jessica carefully picked up the box containing the pie. They stood there for a moment, on the sidewalk, looking at the house. Jessica looked at her family, Daniel with Sophie on his lap, Noah holding her hand, the pie in her arms. Let's go, she said, trying to sound confident. They began walking down the sidewalk toward the porch. Each step felt heavy. Each step brought her closer. They climbed the porch steps. Jessica could hear voices on the other side of the door. Laughter, animated conversation. The family was already inside. Celebrating, happy. Daniel touched her shoulder. Last chance to go back. Jessica shook her head. No, we came this far. Let's go in. She reached out and rang the doorbell. The sound echoed inside the house. The voices stopped for a moment. Footsteps approached the door. Jessica clutched the pie box tighter. She took a deep breath. She forced a smile onto her face. The children were excited beside her. Daniel was tense, prepared for anything. The door began to open, and everything Jessica had imagined, everything she had hoped for, everything she had dreamed of, was about to crumble. But she didn't know it yet. In that moment, with the door opening, she still had hope. And hope, sometimes, is the most dangerous thing to have. The door opened. Margaret was there, dressed elegantly, with perfect makeup and hair done. She looked at Jessica. She didn't smile, she just stared. "Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas." Jessica tried to sound cheerful. Margaret nodded briefly. "Hi, Jessica." Her voice was cold, distant. She didn't even look at the children, or at Daniel. "Mom, this is Noah and Sophie. Look how cute they look." Jessica gently nudged the children forward. Sophie held out her arms, expecting a hug. Margaret looked at her granddaughter for 2 seconds. "Hi." That was it. "Hi." Sophie dropped her arms, confused. Noah stood there, unsure of what to do. Jessica felt her heart sink, but she tried to keep her smile. "Mom, I brought the pie, the one you love." Jessica held out the box. Margaret took it without even looking. "Oh, you can leave it in the kitchen." And she turned her back. She walked into the house. She didn't ask them to come in. She didn't say, "Welcome." Nothing. Jessica stood in the doorway, still holding the box. Daniel touched her back. "Let's go in." They entered. The house was stunning, professionally decorated. A huge tree with gold and silver ornaments, wreaths on the stairs, scented candles everywhere. Wow! Noah looked around, impressed. From the back of the house came an excited voice. "Mommy, are they here?" It was Catherine. She appeared from the kitchen, looking beautiful in a red designer dress. She saw Jessica, and her smile faded. "Oh, hi, Jessica." Margaret returned from the kitchen at that moment. When she saw Catherine, her entire face changed. Her eyes lit up. A huge smile broke out. "My beautiful daughter." She opened her arms and hugged Catherine tightly. "You look perfect. That dress is gorgeous." Jessica stood there, watching her mother hug her sister. Seeing that love, that affection, that admiration, things Margaret never showed her. Catherine pulled away from the hug and looked Jessica up and down. "Nice dress, Jessica. Where did you get it?" "On sale." She smiled, a sweet yet venomous smile. Jessica felt the stab. "No, I bought it at a normal store." Catherine laughed. "Oh yes, normal." She emphasized the word maliciously. "And the kids, such cute clothes." The way she said cute wasn't a compliment. It was condescension, as if she were talking about poor children. Daniel's jaw clenched. His hands balled into fists. Jessica touched his arm quickly, a touch that said, "No, please, don't do anything." "Noah, Sophie, go into the living room with your cousins," Margaret said without looking at them. The children looked at Jessica uncertainly. "Go," she said softly. They walked out slowly. Jessica stood there in the hall with Daniel. Margaret and Catherine had returned to the kitchen, chatting animatedly among themselves, as if Jessica weren't there, as if she were invisible. "Honey," Daniel whispered, "we don't have to stay. Let's go." "No," Jessica whispered back. "We just got here." They went into the living room. There were several people there, aunt and uncle, cousins, friends. Everyone was talking, laughing. Jessica recognized some of them. "Hi, Aunt Linda." She waved. Her aunt looked over, waved briefly back, and continued talking to someone else. Jessica tried to approach a group. "Hi, how are you guys?" They looked at her, said a quick, "Hi," and continued their conversation as if she were interrupting. Daniel saw it all. He saw how they treated his wife, how they ignored her, how they made her feel small. His anger was growing by the second. At that moment, the doorbell rang again. Margaret practically ran to answer it. It was more like family. She welcomed them with warm hugs and huge smiles. Come in, what a joy to have you here." The contrast was stark. With them, Margaret was warm. With Jessica, she was icy. Jessica walked over to where Noah and Sophie were. They were sitting in the corner of the room, alone. Catherine's cousins were on the other side, playing with each other. No one had asked Noah and Sophie to play. "Are you guys okay?" Jessica asked, bending down to their level. Noah nodded, but his eyes were sad. Sophie looked at her mother. "Mommy, why didn't Grandma hug me?" Jessica felt the tears start. She blinked quickly to hold them back. "Grandma's busy, baby. There are a lot of people here." "But she hugged those other kids who arrived," Sophie insisted. Jessica didn't know what to say. How could she explain to a 5-year-old that her grandmother simply didn't love her? "Grandma's just tired. Come on, let's sit here." Daniel sat next to them. Catherine passed by the room at that moment and saw Jessica's family huddled in the corner. She smiled. That smile Jessica knew so well. The smile of someone who had won. Margaret appeared in the doorway of the room. "Catherine, will you come help me here?" Catherine went immediately. Margaret didn't ask Jessica for help. She didn't even look in her direction. More relatives kept arriving. The house was filling up. Each arrival was warmly welcomed by Margaret, hugs, kisses, smiles. But when they passed Jessica, they barely waved. A cousin approached. "Hi, Jessica. It's been a while." "Yes, it has. How are you?" Jessica tried to make conversation. "Fine. Excuse me." And her cousin left. 3 sentences, that was it. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. "Jessica, this is humiliating. We're leaving. Now." "No," Jessica whispered desperately. "We haven't even had dinner yet. Please, Dan." He looked at his wife. He saw the desperation in her eyes, that sick need to be accepted. He wanted to grab her and the kids and run from that house, but he knew Jessica would beg to stay. Sophie stood up and walked over to where Margaret was. "Grandma?" Margaret looked down. "What?" "I drew a picture for you." Sophie held out a folded piece of paper. Margaret took it, looked at it for 2 seconds, and then set it on the table without even opening it. "That's beautiful. Thank you." And she turned away. Sophie stood there, watching her grandmother walk away. Her eyes filled with tears. She walked back to Jessica and climbed onto her lap. "Mommy, Grandma didn't like my drawing." "Yes, she did, baby. She's just busy right now." Jessica hugged her daughter, feeling her own heart break. Noah stood beside her. Quiet. Too quiet. Daniel put his arm around them both. There they were. The 4 of them. Huddled in the corner of the room, while everyone else celebrated. While Margaret laughed with Catherine, while the entire family ignored them. Jessica looked around. She saw the beautiful decor, the happy people, the food being prepared, and she realized they weren't part of this. They never were. They never would be. But dinner was still to come. And Jessica, with that stubborn hope that refused to die, still believed that at supper time everything would change. She didn't know. She couldn't imagine that the worst was yet to come. The house was full now. People were everywhere. Loud conversations, laughter. The smell of dinner filled the air. Roasting turkey, potatoes, pies. Everything smelled fragrant and inviting. Jessica remained in the corner of the room with Daniel and the children, watching. Every time someone new arrived, Margaret would come to the door herself. She gave a warm hug. "How wonderful you're here. Come in, come in." But with Jessica, it had been different. So different. Jessica tried not to think about it. She tried to focus on the fact that she still had dinner. She still had that moment, that chance. Margaret appeared in the room with Catherine by her side. They were laughing about something. Margaret put her arm around Catherine's shoulders. "Everyone, I want you to meet my daughter Catherine," she said loudly, proudly. "She's the one who organized everything today. Isn't it perfect?" Everyone applauded. Catherine took a theatrical bow. Thank you. Mom and I worked so hard to make this night special." Margaret looked at her daughter with such love. My successful daughter, always doing everything perfectly. Jessica was 10 feet away. Margaret didn't mention her. She didn't even look in her direction. It was as if Jessica didn't exist. Daniel squeezed Jessica's arm. He was breathing heavily, angry. "Baby, I can't take it anymore," he whispered. "Let's go. This is humiliating." Jessica looked at him, her eyes pleading. "A little longer, Dan, please. Dinner hasn't started yet." "Jessica, please." She held his hand tightly. Daniel closed his eyes, trying to calm himself, but every muscle in his body was tense. Noah tugged on Jessica's sleeve. "Mommy, can I go to the bathroom?" "Sure, baby. Do you want me to go with you?" "No. I know where it is." Noah left the room. Jessica saw him passing through the hall. Catherine saw him too. She approached the boy. "Hi, Noah. What a nice shirt." Noah smiled shyly. "Thanks, Auntie. It looks expensive. Did your mom spend a lot on it?" Noah didn't understand the question. "I don't know." Catherine laughed. "I imagine so. She always tries to make up for it somehow." Noah didn't understand, but he sensed the tone. He sensed it wasn't nice. He headed for the bathroom, confused. Jessica had seen it all from afar. He saw Catherine talk to her son. He saw the way Catherine laughed. He felt anger rise, but he swallowed it all. Sophie sat in Daniel's lap, quiet, too quiet for a 5-year-old. "Daddy, when are we leaving?" Daniel looked at his daughter. "Soon, princess. I want to leave now." "I know, baby. Me too." Margaret appeared in the living room doorway again. She clapped her hands. "Attention, everyone. Dinner is almost ready. In 5 minutes, we'll all be in the dining room." Everyone applauded excitedly. Jessica's heart raced. Finally, it was time. She stood up, straightening her dress. "Come on, Dan, it's time." Daniel picked Sophie up. Noah came back from the bathroom. They stood there, the 4 of them, waiting. Margaret went to the kitchen. Catherine followed her. Others began moving toward the dining room. Jessica stayed behind, letting everyone else go first. She wanted to go in last. She wanted to see the table set. She wanted that moment. "Mommy, shall we?" Noah tugged at her hand. "We're coming, baby. Easy." Jessica took a deep breath, 3 times, trying to calm herself, trying to control her racing heart. Margaret appeared again. "Everyone to the dining room. Let's go." People began walking around, talking, laughing, excited. Jessica took Noah's hand. Daniel, with Sophie on his lap, stood beside her. "Ready?" he asked. "More than ready." Jessica forced a smile. They followed the flow of people. They passed through the hall, the kitchen, and then they entered the dining room. Jessica stopped in the doorway, and her heart stopped with her. The table was enormous, perfectly set, a spotless white tablecloth, porcelain plates, crystal glasses, shining silver cutlery, linen napkins with gold rings, flowers in the center, lit candles. Everything was stunning. Everything was perfect. And at each place setting was a name marker. Little white cards with gold lettering. Jessica's breath caught. She began searching. Her eyes scanned the table quickly, searching for her name. Daniel's, the children's. She saw Margaret's name, Catherine's children's names, her aunts and uncles, her cousins, her friends. People Jessica didn't even know well, but she didn't see her own name. She didn't see Daniel's. She didn't see Noah's. She didn't see Sophie's. She searched again, slower now. Maybe she'd missed it. Maybe it was in a corner she hadn't seen. She walked around the table, looking at every marker, every name. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Daniel was behind her. He had seen it too. Or rather, he hadn't seen it. Their names weren't there. There were no places for them. Sophie clutched her father's lap. "Daddy, where are our names?" Jessica stopped searching. She stood there, staring at that table, at all those occupied seats, at that space where there was no room for her, where there had never been a place for her. "Mom?" Jessica called. Her voice was shaking. Margaret was across the room, talking to someone. She looked over. "What, Jessica? Where are we going to sit?" The silence that fell over the room was deafening. Everyone stopped talking. Everyone looked. Margaret, Catherine, the aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, all looking at Jessica. Margaret sighed, a tired sigh. "Jessica, you guys will sit in the kitchen. The table is full." Jessica felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. "What do you mean, in the kitchen?" "There aren't enough seats here. Catherine brought guests. We can't fit everyone in." "But Mom, I confirmed weeks ago. You knew we were coming." Jessica was trying to keep her voice calm, but it was breaking. "I know you confirmed it. But Catherine decided to bring more people, and there was nothing we could do," Margaret said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Noah looked at Jessica. Sophie began to cry softly. Daniel set Sophie down and stepped forward. Jessica grabbed his arm. "Dan, no." "No what?" He looked at her. "Are we going to sit in the kitchen? Is that it?" Across the room, Catherine smiled. That smile Jessica would never forget. A smile of victory, of satisfaction, of cruelty. Jessica looked at the table again, at all those places, at all those people, and it hit her. She realized Margaret had planned this. She had left them out on purpose. She had chosen to humiliate her own daughter. And everything Jessica had built, all that hope, all that love, all that attempt to be accepted, crumbled in that moment. Have you ever been excluded from something that should have been rightfully yours? Have you ever felt like you didn't belong where you should? Tell us in the comments. Jessica's story continues, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Margaret turned and went to sit at the table, as if the matter were over, as if she had just resolved something simple. Sophie ran to her. "Grandma, please, I want to sit with you." Margaret didn't even look at her granddaughter. "Sophie, go to your mother, now." The voice was cold, firm. Sophie began to cry louder. "But Grandma." "Sophie!" Margaret raised her voice. The girl was startled and ran back to Jessica. Catherine came to Jessica. She leaned in close. She whispered in her ear, "Did you really think you'd belong here?" "You've always been the leftover, Jessica, always." She smiled. That cruel smile. A cousin of Margaret's appeared. "Come, I'll show you where you'll eat." She didn't meet Jessica's eyes. She just motioned for them to follow. Jessica picked Sophie up. Noah held her hand. Daniel followed, his jaw clenched. They entered the kitchen. In the corner, near the sink, was a small folding table. Small, old, 4 mismatched chairs around it. The cousin placed 4 plates on the table. "I'll bring the food." And she left. Jessica sat down slowly. The chair creaked. Sophie tried to sit, but the chair rocked. "Mommy, it's too soft." Daniel adjusted the chair, but it remained unsteady. Noah sat silently, staring at his empty plate, at that ugly table, at that cold kitchen. Voices came from the dining room. Laughter. "A toast!" someone shouted. The clinking of glasses, more laughter, more conversation, celebration, happiness. Everything Jessica wanted, everything she didn't have. Her cousin returned with plates. She placed them in front of them without saying anything. Jessica looked at them. Small pieces of turkey, cold. Mashed potatoes that were already forming a skin. Wilted salad. Leftovers. They were eating leftovers. Sophie looked at her plate and cried harder. "I don't want this, Mommy." "I know, baby, I know." Jessica couldn't eat. She just stared at that plate, at that cold food, at that humiliation. Noah pushed his plate away. "I'm not eating." Daniel held his hand. "It's okay, champ. You don't have to." The boy's tears began to fall. He tried to hold them back, but failed. "Why doesn't Grandma like us, Dad?" Daniel felt his heart break. "It's not your fault, son. It's no one's fault here." He looked at Jessica. She was staring into space, shocked, destroyed. More laughter came from the room. Margaret was shouting, "Catherine, this decoration is perfect. You're so talented." Applause, more toasts, more celebration. Jessica stood up slowly. "I'll get some water." She left the kitchen. She walked down the hallway. The dining room door was ajar. She stopped. She heard the voices. "I told you I didn't want her here." It was Margaret. Jessica recognized the voice immediately. But she was so insistent. "It's embarrassing, you know, in front of my friends." "She's always been like that, Margaret," another voice said. "Yes, Catherine has always been my joy. She's always made me proud. But Jessica—" Margaret paused. "Jessica has always been a disappointment." Jessica froze. Each word was a knife. She never knew how to behave. She was never pretty like Catherine. She was never smart like Catherine. "I tried, you know, but some people are just no good." Laughter. Margaret's friends laughed. They laughed at Jessica's pain. The tears began to fall. Jessica leaned against the wall, her legs weak. Her entire life, her entire childhood, her entire attempt to be loved. And this was what her mother really thought of her. Daniel walked out of the kitchen and saw Jessica in the hallway. He saw her crying, shaking, broken. "What happened?" she said. Between sobs, she recounted every word she'd heard. Daniel felt something snap inside him. All the anger he'd been holding in exploded. He walked to the dining room. He opened the door. He walked in. Silence fell over the table. Everyone looked at him. "How could you do this?" Daniel looked straight at Margaret. "Those are your grandchildren in the kitchen, crying. That's your daughter you just called a disappointment?" Margaret stood up, irritated. "Were you listening to other people's conversations?" "Other people's conversations." Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "You were talking about my wife. I can say whatever I want in my own house." Margaret slammed the table. Jessica appeared in the doorway, pale, trembling. "Mom, I confirmed 3 weeks ago. You saw my messages. You knew we were coming. And I told you it was complicated. You just wouldn't listen," Margaret screamed. Catherine stood up. "My God, Jessica, you've always been dramatic, always making a mountain out of a molehill." "Dramatic?" Daniel turned to Catherine. "Your nephews are crying because their grandmother made them eat leftovers in the kitchen." "Enough!" Margaret slammed the table again. "You're ruining everyone's Christmas. If you're not happy, you can leave." "Leave!" Jessica felt all the decades of rejection crashing down. "Do you want us to leave?" "Yes, go! You're nothing but trouble." Margaret was red with anger, but it wasn't anger at being discovered. It was anger at being confronted. Jessica stepped forward. Her voice was breaking, but she had to speak. "You never loved me, did you?" "Don't be ridiculous." Margaret looked away. "I'm not ridiculous. You put me in the kitchen at Christmas, in front of my children, and you can't even say you're wrong." Catherine laughed, a scornful laugh. "Such victimhood, Jessica. You've always been like this. That's why no one can stand you." "No one can stand me." Jessica looked around, at everyone sitting there. No one defended her. No one said anything. "You saw what she did, and no one said anything." Daniel grabbed Jessica's arm. "Let's go. Now." He returned to the kitchen. He grabbed Noah and Sophie. The children's eyes were red, frightened by the screams. Jessica stood in the doorway of the room for a moment longer. She looked at Margaret, her mother, the woman who should have loved her. "I spent 35 years trying to be good enough for you, but I never was, and now I understand. The problem was never me. It was you." Margaret opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. Jessica turned away. Daniel was in the hall with the children. They walked to the door. Catherine followed, shouting, "Don't come back! Do you hear me? Don't come back! You're nothing but shame!" Daniel opened the door. The night was cold, dark. He looked at Margaret one last time. "You just lost a daughter and 2 grandchildren." And they left. The door closed behind them. The cold hit Jessica's face. Sophie cried in Daniel's arms. Noah held his mother's hand, trembling. Jessica looked back, at that brightly lit house, at that family that had never been hers. And finally, he understood that it never would be. The drive home was silent. Daniel drove, staring straight ahead. Jessica was in the passenger seat, staring blankly out the window. In the back seat, Sophie cried softly, and Noah was silent, lost. The car pulled into the driveway. Daniel turned off the engine. Everything was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Just heavy breathing and Sophie's quiet sobs. "We're here," Daniel said softly. Jessica didn't respond. She was staring into space, shocked, lost. Noah wiped the tears from his face with his sleeve. "Can we go in, Dad?" Daniel looked back. His 8-year-old son trying to be strong, his 5-year-old daughter, red-faced from crying, and his wife. His wife was devastated. "Let's go," he said. They got out of the car slowly, like zombies. No energy, no life. Daniel opened the door to his house. Everything was dark, cold, empty. There were no special decorations. There was no lit Christmas tree. There was nothing. Jessica had put all her energy into Margaret's Christmas. All her hope was in that house, that dinner, that family. She hadn't prepared anything at home because she didn't need to, because they would be there. But they weren't. They were there, in the dark house, alone. Sophie walked in, holding Daniel's hand. She looked around. "Mommy, aren't we going to have Christmas?" Jessica didn't answer. She went straight to the couch and sat down. She stayed there, staring at the wall, speechless. "Mommy?" Noah came closer. He touched her shoulder. Jessica didn't react. Noah looked at Daniel, startled. "Daddy, Mommy isn't talking." "She just needs some time, champ. Come with me." Daniel led the children into the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. The dim light illuminated his face. Inside was bread, ham, cheese, lettuce, tomato, mustard. Simple things, ordinary things. He grabbed everything and set it on the counter. "Noah, come help me make sandwiches." "Sandwiches?" Noah looked at his dad. "Is this what we're having for Christmas?" "Yeah," Daniel said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is what we have." Noah stood still for a moment. Then he climbed onto the stool beside his father. "Okay, I'll help." Daniel felt his heart sink. His son, his strong son. They began making sandwiches in silence. Daniel cut the bread. Noah put on the ham. Sophie sat on the kitchen floor, hugging her knees. Quiet. Lost. "Sophie, want to help?" Daniel called. She shook her head. She didn't want to. She couldn't. Daniel continued. 4 sandwiches. Simple, basic, nothing special, nothing festive. He grabbed a juice box from the fridge. He poured it into 4 glasses. He arranged everything on a tray. "Let's take it to the living room." Noah grabbed the napkins. They went into the living room. Jessica was still on the couch, in the same position, like a statue. Daniel placed the tray on the coffee table. "Honey, come. Let's eat together." Jessica didn't move. "Jessica," Daniel touched her face. "Look at me." She blinked slowly. She looked at him. Her eyes were empty. "Come. The children need you." He took her hand and tugged gently. Jessica stood up like a robot. She sat on the floor near the coffee table. Daniel sat next to her. Noah sat on the other side. Sophie came slowly and climbed onto Jessica's lap. The girl buried her face in her mother's neck. Jessica finally reacted. She hugged her daughter. She held her tightly. "It's okay, baby. It's okay," she whispered. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. Daniel grabbed a sandwich and offered it to Sophie. "Have a little, princess." Sophie took it. She bit down slowly, tears still falling. Noah took his sandwich. He ate in silence. Daniel took his. He looked at the scene, his family, on the living room floor, eating sandwiches, at Christmas. He looked at Jessica. She was staring at the table, at those simple sandwiches, at that juice box, at that dinner that wasn't dinner. "You know what?" Daniel said, his voice breaking slightly. "This is our dinner." Jessica looked at him. "It's not fancy. It's not pretty. There's no roast turkey or decorated table." He took her hand. "But it's ours. And here, at this table, everyone has a guaranteed seat, always has, always will." Jessica felt something shift inside her, something breaking, something letting go. The tears began to fall, silently, heavily. "No one here eats leftovers," Daniel continued. "No one here sits in the kitchen. Here everyone is treated with respect, with love, with dignity." Sophie stopped eating and looked at her father. Noah did too. Jessica couldn't stop crying. "Mommy, don't cry." Sophie touched her face. "I know, baby. Mommy's okay. Everything's okay." But it wasn't a cry of pain. It was a cry of release. Jessica looked around, at that simple room, at those sandwiches, at those 3 people, her husband, her children, her family. She had spent 35 years seeking love from a woman who was never able to give it. 35 years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for her. And all along, the love was there. In that man holding her hand. In those children who loved her unconditionally. In that small but true family. "You're everything to me," Jessica whispered. "You know that?" "We know, Mommy," Noah said. Daniel kissed her forehead. They stood there, the 4 of them, eating sandwiches on the floor, but together, united, complete. Jessica's phone rang. She looked. It was Margaret. The name flashed on the screen. Everyone looked. "Are you going to answer it?" Daniel asked. Jessica stared at the phone, at that name, at the woman who had been her nightmare her entire life. She pressed the button. She disconnected the call. She didn't answer. For the first time in 35 years, Jessica didn't chase. She didn't beg. She didn't try to fix it. She simply hung up. "Love," Daniel began. "It's over, Dan," Jessica said. Her voice was different, firmer, stronger. "I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to beg for love from someone who doesn't know how to give it." She looked at the children. "You deserve more. I deserve more. We deserve to be truly loved, not crumbs, not leftovers, real love." "And we have it," Noah said. "We love each other." Jessica smiled, a real smile. Through the tears. "Yes, we do, baby, we do." The phone rang again. "Margaret." Jessica looked. She hung up again, and then she blocked the number. Daniel saw it. His eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you." Jessica rested her head on his shoulder. Sophie was in her lap. Noah was beside her. There. This was her family. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what she dreamed of, but it was real. It was true. It was love. And for the first time in her life, Jessica understood. Family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who chooses to stay, who chooses to love, who chooses to embrace. And she had it. She always had. She just had to open her eyes and see. 3 months later, Jessica sat in an office. Soft light streamed in through the window. The therapist sat in the chair opposite, watching her intently. "How do you feel today?" Jessica thought for a moment. "Lighter. It still hurts, but it's different now." She had started therapy 2 weeks after that Christmas. Daniel had insisted, and she had accepted. For the first time in her life, Jessica was looking within. She was understanding the patterns. She was breaking the chains. "Do you realize how much you've grown?" the therapist asked. Jessica smiled. "I do. I blocked my mom's number. I blocked Catherine, too, and I don't feel that need to chase anymore." "That's huge, Jessica." It was immense. Her whole life she had chased crumbs of love. Her whole life she had diminished herself to fit into a space never meant for her, but no longer. When Jessica arrived home that afternoon, Daniel was in the living room with papers spread out on the table. "Honey, come see this." She leaned closer. They were job offers in another city. "What's this?" "I was thinking, we don't have to stay here. Near her, near all this toxicity." Daniel took her hand. "What if we started over? Somewhere else?" Jessica looked at those papers, at those possibilities. "Would you do that? For me?" "I would do it for us. For you, for me, for the kids. We deserve a fresh start." Jessica felt tears, but they were good tears. "Let's go." 2 weeks later, they were packing. Noah and Sophie were excited about the move. New house, new school, new life. The move happened quickly. A city 3 hours away, far enough to breathe. Close enough if they needed to return for a real emergency. Daniel got a better job. Jessica did too. Life was starting over. For the first few months, Jessica blocked unknown numbers. Margaret tried calling from different phones. She sent messages through other relatives, but Jessica didn't respond. She didn't give in. For the first time, she set boundaries. The new neighborhood was quiet. On the second day, a neighbor appeared at the door with a cake. "Welcome, I'm Sarah. I live next door." Jessica was surprised. "Thank you. Want to come in?" "I'd love to." Sarah came in. They talked for hours. She had children Noah and Sophie's age. "You have to meet the people here. Everyone is so welcoming." And it was true. In the following weeks, Jessica met more neighbors. She met other parents at the children's school. She met cool co-workers. For the first time, Jessica was building a real network, people who chose to be around her, not out of obligation, but out of desire. Daniel saw his wife blossoming. He saw her smiling more, laughing more, being herself. One day, Sarah invited Jessica for coffee. "You seem so much lighter now than when you arrived." Jessica considered how to respond. "I came out of a very difficult family situation. I'm learning to value myself." Sarah took her hand. "I'm glad you left. No one deserves to be left where they're not valued." The months passed. Jessica continued in therapy. She continued learning. She learned that she wasn't responsible for Margaret's feelings. She learned that some people simply aren't capable of healthy love. She learned that it wasn't her fault. December arrived again, a year after that horrible Christmas. Jessica stood in the kitchen, looking out the window. Snow was falling outside. Daniel walked in. "What are you thinking about?" "Christmas, last year." "And how do you feel?" Jessica took a deep breath. "Free. I feel free, Dan." He hugged her from behind. "How about we make our own Christmas this year? Our way?" Jessica turned and looked him in the eye. "I'd love to." They started planning. They called Sarah and her family. They called another couple from their neighborhood. They called 2 of Jessica's co-workers who didn't have family in town. "We'll have a dinner for anyone who wants to come," Jessica said. "A table where everyone has a seat." On Christmas Eve, Jessica decorated the house. Simple, but with love. He bought a tree, and the kids helped decorate it. They baked cookies together. They laughed. They made a mess. It was perfect. On the 25th, Jessica woke up different. She didn't have that anxiety, those butterflies in her stomach. She only felt peace. She calmly prepared dinner. Daniel helped. The children set the table. Simple dishes. Paper napkins, nothing fancy, but made with love. The guests began to arrive. Sarah with her family, her neighbors, her colleagues, the house filled with people, with laughter, with genuine love. Jessica looked around. Those people, that joy, that genuine connection. The table wasn't fancy. It didn't have crystal glasses. It didn't have professional decor. But it had something much more valuable. It had love. It had acceptance. It had inclusion. Everyone sat together. Everyone had a guaranteed place. Jessica served the food. Roast turkey she'd made herself. Potatoes. Salad. Apple pie. When everyone was served, Daniel asked for attention. I'd like to make a toast. To family, to the family we choose, to the family that chooses us back. Everyone raised their glasses. Jessica felt tears, but they were tears of happiness. She looked at Noah and Sophie. They were smiling, happy, safe, loved, and she knew. She knew she had broken the cycle. Her children would never feel what she felt. Never, I would beg, love. They would never feel not enough, because she was teaching them differently. She was showing them that true love doesn't hurt. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't exclude. That night, after everyone had left, Jessica remained in the living room, staring at the beautiful mess that had been left behind. Empty glasses, dirty plates, leftover food, signs of a real party, a true celebration. Daniel appeared behind her. Happy? More than I ever imagined possible, she replied. He hugged her. You built this. You created this family, this table. This love. We built it, Jessica corrected. Together. She no longer needed Margaret's approval. She no longer needed that seat at the table that had never been hers, because now she had her own table. And at that table, she decided who sat. And everyone who sat was treated with dignity, with respect, with love. Jessica had spent 35 years looking for love in the wrong place, but now she had found it. Not where she expected, but where it truly mattered. In herself, in the family she chose, in the life she built, and that was more than enough. That was all. Jessica's story teaches us something profound. She spent 35 years begging for love from someone who was never capable of giving it. 35 years trying to be enough for a woman who chose not to love her. And her greatest wounds came from the very person who should have protected her, her mother. But Jessica won. Not because Margaret changed. Not because Catherine apologized. Not because the family acknowledged their mistake. Jessica won because she chose not to repeat the pattern. Because she chose to break the cycle. Because she chose to teach her children something different. Noah and Sophie will never sit in a kitchen eating leftovers while others celebrate. They will never beg for scraps of love. Because Jessica is showing them what true love is. Love that includes. Love that values. Love that respects. The moral of this story is clear. A true family doesn't humiliate. It doesn't exclude. It doesn't destroy. A true family welcomes, embraces, lifts. And sometimes a true family isn't the one that shares our blood. It's the one that chooses to stay, that chooses to love, that chooses to build together. Jessica's greatest act of self-love was knowing when to walk away. It was understanding that she didn't have to continue sitting at a table where she wasn't welcome. She could build her own table, a table where everyone has a guaranteed seat, where no one eats leftovers, where everyone is treated with dignity. What about you? Are you sitting at a table where you're not valued? Are you begging for love from someone who doesn't know how to give it? Remember, you can build your own table. And at that table, you decide who sits. What was the biggest lesson you learned from Jessica's story? Tell us in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more moving stories like this.